But it was too late for Ben-Gurion, too. Harel's campaign against the scientist had played into the hands of the opposition leader, Begin, who never let up his attacks on Ben-Gurion. Even inside his own party, Mapai, things had reached a boiling point. Ben-Gurion squabbled ceaselessly with Golda Meir, Harel's main supporter. Less than 2 months after replacing Harel, Ben-Gurion convinced he'd lost the support of even his own party, resigned. He was replaced by Levi Eshkol, or Eskol, Eshkol. Meanwhile, Egypt was still tinkering with the guidance systems for the missiles that could have caused grave harm to Israel. Meir Emit, one of the IDF's brilliant young commanders, a planner of the 1956 Sinai campaign who was responsible for advancing the military intelligence directorate by several generations, took over a Mossad in disarray. The agency was deeply demoralized. In the 9 months since Egypt had announced its 4 missile tests, the Israelis had learned precious little about the program, and everything the Mossad and Amman had tried thus far had failed to even slow the project, let alone dismantle it. Pressuring Germany, whether through Harel's self-immolating campaign or Foreign Minister Golda Meir's fiery speeches to the Knesset, had made no difference. Later that summer, a strongly worded missive from Eshkol to Chancellor Konrad Adenauer, demanding immediate action to get the scientists back from Egypt, also failed to spur the Germans. As Israeli diplomats reported to the Foreign Ministry in Jerusalem, they could only assume that Adenauer and the leadership are preoccupied with more important problems, such as managing the Cold War in the post-Cuban Missile Crisis period. Amit set about rebuilding the organization, reinforcing it with best personnel he knew from Amman. As soon as he took over, he ordered a halt to any matters that he had considered extraneous, and a drastic reduction of the resources being devoted to the hunt for Nazi criminals, explaining that it was a matter of priorities. Before all else, we have to produce information about the enemies of the state of Israel nowadays. Amit knew he needed a tactical reset, and that the Mossad had to rethink its approach to the problem of Egyptian missiles. His first order, then, was for a shift away from targeted killing operations, and for the vast majority of his resources to be focused instead on trying to understand what precisely was going on inside the missile project. Secretly, however, with most of the top officials of the organization out of the loop, he prepared a targeted killing project of his own against the scientists. Operations personnel were trying to find ways to send parcel bombs from inside Egypt, thereby significantly shortening the time between the sending and opening of a package. They tried out the method on a relatively easy target, the physician Hans Eisel. On September 25th, there was a blast in the post office from the upscale Cairo neighborhood of Mahdi, when a letter bomb that had been addressed to Dr. Karl Debush, the false name that Eisel was using, exploded and blinded a postal worker. Damn, that sucks. Damn, that sucks. The failure of this operation convinced Amit that targeted killings should only be used very sparingly, if not as a last resort, then at the very least, only after meticulous planning that would prevent embarrassing failures. Nevertheless, he ordered the Mossad to prepare plans to shoot, blow up, or poison the scientists in the event that the effort to solve the matter peacefully didn't work out. Amit ordered the break-ins to all the offices connected to the missile project in Germany and Switzerland to be stepped up, and as many documents as possible photographed. These operations were enormously complex. The sites were well guarded, both by Egyptian intelligence and by Hermann Valentin's men, in the hearts of crowded European cities, in countries where the law was strictly enforced. Because that's Cold War Germany. Mossad operatives burglarized the Egyptian embassies, the Egyptian purchasing mission in Cologne, and the Intra office in Munich. They broke into the Egypt Air Force office in Frankfurt no fewer than 56 times between August 1964 and December 1966. The information obtained in the break-ins, some 30,000 documents were photographed up to the end of 1964 alone, was important but far from sufficient. The Mossad had to recruit someone in the inside of the missile project. This critical task was assigned to a division called Junction, or Somet in Hebrew, Tsomet, which would become the Mossad's most important branch, responsible for bringing in the bulk of the organization's intelligence. Unlike in Hollywood movies and Pulp Fiction, most of this information was not collected directly by Mossad's employees darting about in the shadows. Rather, it is gleaned from foreign nationals in their home countries. The Mossad case officers responsible for recruiting and operating these sources are called collection officers, katsa, in the Hebrew acronym. And they were expert psychologists. They know how to persuade a person to betray everything and everyone he believes in: his friends, family, his organization, his nation. Unfortunately, though, none of them had been able to work their psychology on anyone close to the Egyptian program. Recruiting agents in Arab countries became a long-term strategic priority, but in the short run, with the clock ticking, Junction would have to look elsewhere. In April 1964, Amit sent Rafi Eitan to Paris, which served as the European nerve center of the Israeli intelligence, to run Junction's operations on the continent. Up to this point, all of Junction's efforts to enlist one of the scientists had come to naught, mostly because of the rigid security precautions instituted by Valentin. From day to day, he was becoming more of a problem. The need to deal with Valentin would lead to the netting of a much bigger fish. Avraham Ahituv, Junction coordinator in Bonn, had an idea, and he presented it to Eitan in Paris in May 1964. He'd identified a dubious character who sold arms and intelligence to the Nasser regime, and who was also close to the German scientists. "There's just one small problem," Ahituv said. Yeah, I'm going to pronounce it that way. "The man's name is Otto Skorzeny, and he was a high-ranking Wehrmacht officer, one of Hitler's special operations commanders, and a favorite of the Fuhrer." "And you want to recruit Otto?" Eitan asked sarcastically. "Wonderful. There's one more small matter," Ahituv added. He was a devoted Nazi and a member of the SS. In 1960, Ahituv told Eitan Harl had ordered a mall. I'm going to start that over because I read it poorly, and I'm probably going to stop right in the middle of some stuff, start the next recording there. In 1960, Ahituv told Eitan Harl had ordered a mall, the unit that handled the hunt for Nazi war criminals, to gather as much information as possible about Skorzeny, with the goal of bringing him to justice or killing him. His file said he was an enthusiastic member of the Austrian Nazi Party at the age of 23. Start that over because it's read poorly. His file said he was an enthusiastic member of the Austrian Nazi Party at the age of 23, had enlisted in 1935 to a secret SS unit in Austria, and had taken part in the Anschluss, Hitler's annexation of Austria, and in Kristallnacht, Crystal Night, that time they broke all that glass or whatever. He rose rapidly in rank in the Waffen-SS, becoming head of its Special Operations Unit. Man. Stur Sturmbannführer Skorzeny. Sturmbannführer. Sturmban SturmbannfUHRER. Skorzeny parachuted into Iran and trained local tribes to blow up oil pipelines serving the Allied armies. And he plotted to murder the big three: Churchill, Stalin, and Roosevelt. He also had a plan for abducting and killing General Dwight D. Eisenhower, who was forced to spend Christmas 1944 surrounded by a heavy guard. Most famously, Skorzeny was selected personally by Hitler to lead the Gran Sasso raid, which successfully extricated the Führer's friend and ally, the former fascist dictator Benito Mussolini, from the Alpine via where he was being held prisoner by the Italian government. Allied intelligence called Skorzeny the most dangerous man in Europe. He was not, however, convicted of war crimes. He was acquitted by one tribunal, and after he was rearrested on other charges, he escaped to help his SS friends. He took refuge in Franco's Spain, from where he established profitable commercial relations with fascist regimes around the world, and also maintained contact with the German scientists in Egypt. Skorzeny's acquaintance with the scientists in Egypt and the fact that he'd been superior read poorly. Skorzeny's acquaintance with the scientists in Egypt and the fact that he'd been a superior officer to Hermann Valentin during the war were enough, in Eaton's view, to justify trying to recruit him, despite his Nazi past. Eaton was not a Holocaust survivor, and he dealt with the matter, as was his wont, without emotional involvement. If it helped Israel, he thought, that would make it worth forgiveness. And we could offer him in exchange something that no one else could, he told his colleagues: life without fear. Through a number of intermediaries, the Mossad established contact with countless Ilse von Finkenstein, Skorzeny's wife. I'm going to do that one more time, and this will be the last paragraph that I do on this recording. Through a number of intermediaries, the Mossad established contact with Countess Ilse von Finkelstein, Skorzeny's wife. She would serve as the Mossad's entree. The Mossad file on the Countess says that she was a member of the aristocracy. She is a cousin of the pre-war German finance minister. I don't know how to pronounce this. It's Hjalmar. Jalmar, and then Schacht, Schacht. She is 45, a fairly attractive woman, and brimming over with energy. Well, she was involved in everything, said Rafi Medan, the German-born Mossad operative who was assigned to the mission. She sold titles of nobility, has ties with the Vatican intelligence, and sold arms as well. She and her husband also had liberal ideas about their relationship. They didn't have children, Medan said, and they maintained an open marriage. Ilse always looked stunning. Every 2 years, she underwent hormonal treatment in Switzerland in order to preserve her youth.